You're listening to the Business Marketing Show. On this episode, we have our special guest, Troy Dean from wpelevation.com. You can find us at businessmarketingshow.com, on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Hi, you're listening to the Business Marketing Show. On this episode, we have our special guest, Troy Dean from wpelevation.com and videousermanuals.com. I met Troy in Sydney at the Traffic and Conversion Summit last month, July of 2015, and have been using the Video User Manuals product for quite some time for our WordPress clients, which is awesome. So thank you very much, Troy, for being on the show.
Hey, Ed, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, mate. Thanks for the invite.
You're most welcome. A bit of a history about Troy and how he got involved with all this sort of stuff is what we want to know, Troy. So how did you get involved in your whole WordPress product development and all the stuff you're doing now?
Well, I'll give you the brief version. I was in my early 30s, I reckon, and I was playing. I was a musician. I still am a musician, actually. And I was playing gigs around town and doing voiceovers on, commercials on radio and television.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of time on my hands, and I had an internet connection, which is never a good thing when you've got time on your hands and an internet connection. So. After I did all the obvious stuff, I actually went and tried to work out, how do I build a website to promote myself as a voiceover artist, and how do I promote the band that I'm playing in? So I started building websites, and then I started building websites for friends, and they were all in Flash, by the way. And they were sexy. They had animations and little sound effects that went off, and they were good. Anyway, and then a buddy of mine actually said, who's a cinematographer here in Melbourne, he said, can I pay you to build me a proper website? And I was like, dude, I'm insulted. What do you mean? I have built you a proper website. He said, no, I want a proper website that I can, change myself and that, Google can actually read and, people can find. I said, okay. So I thought I better learn how to do it properly if you're going to pay me. So I grabbed a couple of books, those old recipe books, HTML, CSS recipe books that O'Reilly put out.
Yeah.
And learned. Actually, took myself. I got a gig on an island, on Great Keppel Island, playing music on the island 5 days a week, and 5 nights a week. And during the day, I just kind of sat around by the pool reading these books on a really crappy internet dial-up connection, learning how to. I wrote my own content management system in Notepad+. In HTML and CSS and PHP and MySQL. And then I got back off the island, and a buddy of mine told me I kept asking him questions. How do you do this in PHP? And he said, I just use WordPress. I'm like, that doesn't help me. I'm trying to, write my own thing. And then eventually I just downloaded WordPress, and I went, oh, right. So I just spent 6 weeks doing what I could have done in 20 minutes. And the rest is kind of history from there. I mean, I fell into it and started building websites for clients, and then gradually moved into the product market, and now we provide business coaching and software for WordPress consultants. So that's kind of the short version, man. Yeah.
So you were doing voiceovers, and that was funny because I was only listening to some of your voiceovers on your blog at troydean.com.au the other day, and I was having a bit of a laugh because we only met. So the history of how Troy and I know each other, we've met in person at the Traffic and Conversion Conference in July in Sydney in 2015, so just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'd been a customer of the video user manuals for probably about 18 months or so now, which I absolutely love. And anyone who is a developer and does any sort of training or has to educate their customers on how to use WordPress, you've got to get video user manuals. It's an absolute game changer. Well, it definitely was for us. Saved us a huge amount of time. So
good to hear.
Get in before these guys put their prices up, because I reckon they're going to put their prices up soon. So you got to get it. Anywho, I wasn't paid for that plug either, by the way. but yeah, so we met there for the first time. But then I was listening to your voiceovers, and it was quite funny because I'd obviously been listening to you for years because
Yeah.
I recognised all these ads. I'm going, oh, that's Troy. So it's quite funny. So we'll put some links to your voiceover because you do have a voice for radio,
Yes.
and for video, and you know your face isn't too bad either, mate. So that's all right.
Good head for radio, as they say. Yeah.
Good head for radio, yeah.
Good voice for telly, yeah.
So, but your WordPress product is fantastic, and that sort of led into the WP Elevation training and support for WordPress developers. Is that the sequence? So it was the product first, the video user manuals first, then WP Elevation?
That's right. So video user manuals was ticking along quite nicely. I was still doing a lot of consulting work, and I hired Ed Dale as a mentor, which is a whole other story about how that came about. But I actually hired Ed, who's a very well-known digital marketer here in Australia, and founder of Magcast, which is a great digital publishing platform for publishing magazines into the newsstand. Anyway, I'd been through the 30-day challenge, which is the thing that he started, where he basically took you through a 30-day challenge to make your first dollar on the internet. Yeah. And I pretty much everything I learned about online marketing, I learned through going through the challenge with Ed Dale. And eventually, I threw him some money and said, I want you to mentor me for 6 months. And the first meeting we had, he basically said, well, what are you up to? What are you doing? And I told him everything that I was doing. And I kind of had two businesses. I had my consulting agency, and then I had Video User Manuals, which was a part-time gig. And he said, well, the thing is, if you want to be successful at something, you really have to become a top 20 influencer. That's his whole thing, is you have to be a market leader, right? And True. In order to be a top 20 influencer, you need to really focus on you can either be the best WordPress consultant in Melbourne, or you can be the guy that owns helping WordPress consultants to build their business. But you can't do both. You need to focus on one and do that. And you can always become a market leader in multiple markets, but it's really hard to become a market leader in multiple markets at the same time. Yeah. So he kind of gave me the kick up the pants that I needed. And I said, yeah, right. So why am I trying to build this audience of small business owners to kind of, respect me as an online marketing expert when I've already got this audience of WordPress consultants who ask me questions all the time about running their business? So it was a natural progression to then reach out to our audience and say, well, hey, what do you guys want? Like, how can we help you? What do you need? And they told us, our WordPress consulting audience told us what they wanted, and we put it together into WP Elevation. And that was just over 2 years ago.
Fantastic. Now, mate, there's a novel idea. Ask the audience what they want.
That's right. Yeah, I know.
If only more people would do that, it'd be a better world. It's so obvious, isn't it, to do? But yeah, it is. Just so many companies go, oh, that's a good idea.
Well, it's funny because, Seth, this is what Seth, I had the great, good fortune of interviewing Seth Godin recently on my podcast.
That's a great podcast, that one.
Yeah, he's the godfather. He is. And, and there was a quote, Dan Norris, my buddy Dan Norris from WP Curve shared an image on Facebook yesterday that said, it's a Seth Godin quote, and he says, instead of finding customers for your product, build product for your customers. Yes. And it's like, and the balance is, the trick is, you got to balance that with the great quote from Henry Ford, which is, if I gave my customers what they wanted, I would have given them a faster horse. So the balance is, you've got to know what your customers want. You've got to know what they're, and ideally, again, something that Dan Norris spells out in his great book, 7-Day Startup, is you've got to try and work out what they're already paying for. So find, what your customers want, what they're already paying for, and then deliver them something new. So, give them something they're already paying for, but give it to them in such a novel, new way that your solution is better than what they're currently buying. Yeah. And that's kind of how WP Elevation came about, because there were a couple of other people in the space doing sort of general business advice for web professionals, but we just packaged that up in a way that made it really unique, because it was the first business coaching program that focused purely on WordPress consultants.
typical client for WP Elevation I'm assuming is going to be from like a one man band type developer. How high up do you go in terms of agencies? Do you get a lot of work in that as well, or support those?
It's primarily the sort of 1 to 3 person team.
Okay.
The agencies, there's a whole bunch of infrastructure and complexity that comes along with having a big team, and we generally don't play in that space. Most agencies who are at that level, if they are wanting to improve their processes, each agency, in my experience, is such a unique beast that they generally get, some kind of business coach or some kind of mentor to actually come in and work with them individually. And at that size, they've generally got the budget to be able to do that. So having said that, we've got a handful of members who are, a team of 4 or 5. But typically speaking, the ideal client for WP Elevation is a freelancer or someone who is working in a team of 3, and they're either overwhelmed with too much work, or they're not really profitable, like they're not making enough profit to pay themselves and leave profit in the bank. Mm-hmm. They've effectively just got themselves a job, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they're kind of on the tools too much. They're doing too much of the daily grunt work, and they're not actually attracting the right type of client into the business. So we just help them, give them some structure and kind of help them grow up from, and I mean that respectfully, we help them kind of grow up from freelancer into consultancy.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's the E-Myth for WordPress developers.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there is a lot of that. There's a lot of systems and processes and documentation, and the idea is, I had this great call the other day on our podcast with a guy named John Warrilow, who wrote a book called The Automatic Customer, which is something that we'll talk more about, I'm sure, the whole subscription recurring revenue model. And he said on the call, if you're not building something that is teachable to employees, valuable to your customers, and repeatable, then you're not building a business. You've effectively just given yourself a job.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's, definitely what we try and do is help our members build processes, systemize and productize their skill set in a way that they can teach it to other staff or, people that they contract work out to, that continues to add value to their customers and that is repeatable, so that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's invaluable, because that is one of the downsides when they're running their own business. They just run out of that time issue trying to get everything done themselves. And then as soon as they start taking on staff, their profit dips down because they've taken on the staff member to deal with the extra work, and the seesaw ride begins.
Yeah, exactly, man.
So you do have to learn how to leverage it. And so fantastic. That's great. Now, just back to the video user manuals for a sec, because I love talking about this product. I'm a bit of an evangelist. I'm a very classic example of what an evangelist is when it comes to a product, because I tell people about it all the time. Now, typically, the scenario was before, when we were developing all our sites, we'd have a staff member that would have to sit and work through with a client, showing them how to do a blog post or a page, or edit an image, or et cetera, et cetera. And it was taking hours and hours, and it was just not productive at all. And then as soon as this came across my desk and I saw it for the first time, I thought, this is an absolute no-brainer. This is just going to save us. And I was only just looking at your website today on videousermanuals.com, and you've got the little exercise that says, how much is it costing you to train clients to use WordPress?
Yeah,
and you've got some calculations there which I think are really, really understated, and probably done on purpose. And you click run those numbers and you go, holy shit, that's a lot of money compared to what I would have to pay to get this software set up. And it's just brilliant. And the great thing is that I love about the whole platform is you can choose different voices. You can have American, you can have Australian, you can have English, and it's automatically knows what version of WordPress is running on the platform and displays the relevant videos to that.
Yeah.
Very clever. Very clever.
Thanks.
And it must have taken a lot of time to get all that set up and done. And
Yeah, and it's been, it's been a process of iteration. It wasn't, this sophisticated when we first released it. The different accents, and I mean, the one thing that it did have from day one is that it knew which version of WordPress you were running, and it served up the right videos and the right written manual based on the version of WordPress. So, like, if you had version, when we started out, it was version 2.8 or something. So if you'd upgraded to version 3 and all of a sudden you had custom post types, well, actually we don't teach custom post types, but what's another example? If it had when the new image editor tools came out in whatever version that was, then if you had the previous version, then those videos just wouldn't be displayed, because that would be confusing if we were showing you how to use a feature that didn't exist. But as soon as you upgraded your version of WordPress, then the videos automatically upgraded from the cloud. So that's something that's always been in there from day one. The new voices, the new accents was new, and we just keep adding plugins, like adding WooCommerce and Yoast SEO and Gravity Forms. That's something that we just keep iterating as well, based on what our customers tell us.
Yeah, fantastic product. Look, and it's like anything. As soon as someone starts using it, there's no way they're going to go back to how they were doing it. It's going to be a revelation to them. So
it is kind of one of those products. It's I remember we had a customer recently email us and say, "You have a habit of making plugins I didn't know I needed until I used them." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. That's sweet. That's nice."
That's a great comment. And that's where, though, you've melded those two scenarios. You're talking about Henry Ford and the other scenario about making a product that you finding out what your customers need, and then making the product that Seth was talking about. But really, it's both combined, because they definitely need it. I mean, they don't know they need it half the time until they see it. But it's definitely something, unless they're prepared to spend copious amounts of hours doing the same thing over and over again with clients. It's a no-brainer. So great job. And so we were talking about recurring revenues earlier, and this is something that you've started working on quite closely, and you've started a recurring revenue roadmap group on Facebook. Tell us more about that, because that was just something you decided to do from the conversations we had.
Well, look, again, I mean, it's one of those things that, I have a lot of conversations with freelancers and consultants, mainly in the WordPress space, but also, general small business owners. I have a lot of conversations on, through the podcast, through email, through comments on blogs, people just emailing me. I've dozens of these conversations a week from people saying, how do you find the time to run a podcast? I know that podcasting is successful. I know that podcasting is very popular and could help me position myself, as a better consultant or a better service provider and bring in more business. But I just don't have time to podcast, or I don't have time to blog, or how do you find the time to do all the things that you do in your business? And my answer is, well, I'm not doing anywhere near as much client work as you are. We're really picky and choosy about the client work that we take on, and we can afford to do that because we've got, and I didn't know this at the time, but through these conversations we've been having over the last 12 months or so, it's because we have the recurring revenue in the business that we can afford to, not all the time, but a lot of the time we can afford to just take our foot off the pedal and go, well, what do we want to do now? Like, what does this business look like in 12 months' time? And I think a lot of small business owners don't have the freedom to actually think about that, because a lot of small business owners are just chasing the next client because they've got to keep the lights on and pay staff and, eat and feed the family. So recurring revenue is something that I've realized over the last, as a result of having these conversations, I've realized how much of a game changer it is. And the plugin was the first thing that we built for recurring revenue, and the business coaching program was the next thing we built. And so I've just had a whole bunch of people asking me how we do this. And so I decided to test the market. I mean, talk about asking your customers what they want. Asking them what they want is one thing. Asking them if they'll pay for something is a completely different kettle of fish. So people will tell you one thing, but they won't necessarily hand over money. So So we ran an event a couple of months ago in Melbourne just to test the market, to test if there was interest in recurring revenue, and we had about 45 small business owners come to a small event that we ran in the city where I taught them everything I know about recurring revenue. We got a bunch of guest speakers to come in and talk as well, which was good. And now we've started a Facebook group just to keep that conversation going, and so that we can learn what are the pain points for people creating recurring revenue, and is there a product that we can build, whether it's, you know, a training education product, whether it's a piece of software, whether it's a community, like what is that product that would help the average small business owner create recurring revenue in their business? Because I know firsthand the difference that recurring revenue makes to your business and your life and your stress levels. And that's something that I'm quite passionate about, and I really want to try and help as many business owners as possible create recurring revenue. And I think the sweet spot is, I think it's perfect for the service provider and the creative professional. I think they're the kind of ideal target, if you like, for the ideal candidate to create recurring revenue is someone who's currently providing services, and anyone in the creative in the creative space as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because there are those two sides of it. Because we have recurring revenue as a sort of web development, web marketing company. For, you know, we're managing AdWords campaigns, and we've been doing that for 12 years. So we've got ongoing monthly fees for managing clients' AdWords accounts and doing SEO and all that sort of stuff. So that would, as far as you're concerned, that's recurring revenue, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And then, so there you've got a product. Now we don't have a product, which is something we're working on at the moment. And I think you've got far more leverage with a product than you do with a service. So what's your opinion on the two different types of recurring revenue, services versus product?
Well, the big distinction, and this is something I've learned over the years, the big distinction is that customers buy products and you provide services to clients. So really, the distinction is that when you provide services to clients, there's a bit more hand-holding that goes along. There's a bit more FaceTime you put in with the client. There's a bit more touchy-feely, relationship nurturing, right? Whereas if you go and buy a product at Officeworks, off the shelf, and you walk up to the checkout and you give them the money and you walk out, there's no relationship. It's a transactional thing, right? So digital products you can make once and sell over and over again. The difference with the recurring revenue product, which essentially is like a membership site or some kind of mastermind group or some kind of digital product that keeps updating. So, for example, you could have like a training product where you release one module every week, and that might be something that you do over a 3-month period. Well, that's recurring revenue for 3 months, right?
Correct.
There's a little more love in that relationship than just selling an ebook to someone or just selling a widget. Like, you buy an iPhone cover online and get it delivered to your office. Well, there's no love in that relationship, is there? That's just completely transactional. So the recurring revenue product does require a little more love in the relationship, but it's not as intense as selling services to clients, if you know what I mean.
I know. Definitely know that one.
Yeah. And so for the service professional or the creative professional, the obvious low-hanging fruit is people are using the internet to research information, and there's a big portion of people on the internet who are what I call the DIYers. They just want to do stuff themselves. So if you look at someone like, freenetlaw.com, and there's a couple of others, I can't remember the ones in Australia, but they're essentially lawyers who have written boilerplate contracts, and for a monthly membership, you can log in and download any contract you need for your business. So if you need to hire someone, you can download a letter of employment and a contract, employment contract. If you need terms and conditions and privacy policy for your website, you can log in and download that. And for a low monthly fee, you've got access to all of this documentation. So the lawyers generating recurring revenue because they're basically providing a solution to the DIYers. Now, if you want them to write a bespoke contract for you, it's going to cost you a lot more, and there's a lot more contact in that relationship. But if you're just a DIYer and you're just starting out, you can, log in, pay your membership, and download their documents, and it's a lot cheaper. So I think that's the obvious low-hanging fruit in most organisations is how can you package up what it is you do in a done-for-you sense and turn that into a DIY product that you can continue to sell.
Yeah, and that product could then turn into something that we would classify as a lead magnet or a tripwire, probably more accurately. So it's a low cost product getting people in,
That's
which would
right.
be the monthly membership, and
Yep.
then you could have a coaching program or a mastermind group that's 25 grand a year.
Yep.
And obviously there's a big gap between the starting point and the 25,000. You could have other
Yep.
products between, but
Yep.
it doesn't have to be the only point of recurring revenue. There can be other things that it leads to, from small cost through to the higher ones.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
So looking at your recurring revenue roadmap group on Facebook, currently as we speak, there are 439 members.
Mm.
Now, the first time I hopped on, I think it was about 240 or something, or 280. So,
Yeah.
that was only in the space of like 48 hours then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's right.
there's a lot more people that have come onto this. So,
Yeah.
what is the purpose of this group? What is it you're trying to achieve with the group itself? Is it sort of a market research, just really nutting out what people are looking for? What's the end goal with this one?
It's a very good question. Really, it is about building a community. Well, so first of all, it's the quickest and cheapest way to quantify whether or not there is any interest in what it is you're talking about, right?
Great point. And if people didn't hear that, they should listen to that again.
That's right.
Rewind
Let me repeat that again.
Yep.
It's the quickest and cheapest way to quantify whether or not there is any interest in what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So Facebook is by far and away the easiest and cheapest way to, reach your tentacles out to as many people as possible who might share your interest, whatever your interest is. I don't care if it's model railway sets or if it's, embossed business cards, whatever your interest is.
Yep.
By the way, if you do start a Facebook group for embossed business cards, let me know. I'll probably join.
That's a worry.
It is. Have you seen American Psycho?
Yeah, a while ago.
Those scenes in American Psycho where all those wankers in the boardroom are pulling out their business cards and they're, saying, "Oh, this is a 300 GSM business card," and the topography's all over. I love it. Anyway,
okay, I'll might start that one just for you, mate.
So first of all, prove whether or not what you're talking about is of interest to other people, and then really the idea with building the community is just to facilitate the conversation, just invite people into the group, give them some structure. So we've got, every day of the week is a different theme in the Facebook group. What's today? Wednesday is midweek check-in. So at the moment, this afternoon, there'll be a post that goes out that says, "Hey, just checking in. Has anyone made any movement towards achieving the goal that they stated that they wanted to achieve," which is what you do on Monday. And so you basically just facilitate that conversation with a bit of structure. And it's excellent market research because I'm uncovering what people's pain points are in terms of creating recurring revenue and what their problems are, because people are asking questions all the time, right? Second of all, at some point, the plan is that once the Facebook group, is really humming along, it will probably become a paid community. It'll become a premium forum, and we'll sell access to that as a mastermind group. But at the moment, I'm just still building traction and still determining whether or not this is something that, because here's the thing, if I'm going to go down this road, then I'm looking at a 2-year journey of becoming the guy on the planet that talks about recurring revenue for small business.
Yeah.
Right? So is that what I want to do? Do I want to travel the world over the next 2 years speaking at conferences about creating recurring revenue? Do I want to, John Warrillow's written the book called Automatic Customer. Do I want to, start playing in that space? And so this is a way of kind of going, and because I always think it's important to start having the conversation before you decide whether or not it's a conversation you want to have.
For sure.
Right. I know that might sound a bit weird, but
no, not at all. Makes perfect sense.
Like you get halfway through a book and you get actually, I'm really not interested in this book, but I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't read the first few chapters. Yeah. So you kind of got to read the first few chapters to decide whether or not this is something this is a conversation that you want to have. Because I know so many small business owners who hate their business and they're stuck in it, right? And they're bored out of their minds, but they're stuck in this business because they've got too many customers. They can't shut it down. They don't want to go and get a job, but they hate it. So, I'm determined never to make that mistake and never to go down that path. And that was kind of where I ended up in the consulting agency. I was miserable in that business. So this is a way of just very light touch, having the conversation and then determining, all right, is there a problem here worth solving? Can we design a product that will help these people? Is there a community here that will buy what we're putting out? And is this a conversation? And is this a story that we want to tell for the next couple of years? Because that's how long it'll take to be, to really own that space and to become successful.
Yeah, look, so that is gold, mate. And that doing that market research on a platform like Facebook, which doesn't cost you anything to get set up, a bit of time to start sending out the messages and getting people joining, and finding out whether your idea or topic or product has any merit whatsoever. So that is gold. I think out of the whole podcast, that is probably my biggest takeaway, because I've dabbled in doing that a little bit, but it's given me some good ideas while I've been sitting here. So that's awesome. So now you have to be invited, or you've got a request to join this group. So
that's right.
So we'll put a link, and you're happy for anyone to join?
Totally. Look, if you're serious about, if you really want to create recurring revenue in your business, then by all means, come and join the Facebook group. You'll get approved. You just need to apply. You just need to request to join, and we'll approve you. And as I said, if you do want to do it, I'd suggest you do it now, because at some point we are going to make it a paid entry thing. So come, by all means, come in and join the conversation and learn. And I think the idea with Facebook groups is like any kind of forum is you got to be prepared to help people as much as you want to learn. So the more active you are, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like anything, isn't it? So now you mentioned speaking and traveling and doing different things. You've done a fair amount of speaking over the years, and that was where I saw you present at the Traffic and Conversion Conference, and it was a great job. One of the best speakers there, I personally thought.
Oh, thank you, mate.
And not blowing smoke, it's true. That's how it is, which is why we're talking. But is that something you enjoy doing? Do you like doing live presentations and getting up there and traveling around and doing that sort of thing?
Yeah, I do. I love it. I mean, I'm a performer from way back.
You're a singer in a band. We'll go on to that bit in a minute.
It's old man's rock and roll, mate. I mean, that's what it is. It's old man's rock and roll. And so I love. I mean, first of all, I love being on stage. I'm a bit of a show pony. I love being the center of attention. I love being on stage. But also, there's something very rewarding about, the kind of novelty of being the center of attention wears off pretty quickly, right? So then what sustains you, traveling, because it is tiring. It is exhausting work. And also hanging around afterwards, talking to a lot of people as they're coming up to you and asking you questions and picking your brain and having selfies taken. That's all fun, but it is also very exhausting. So what sustains you to keep going with that is, for me, it's very rewarding when you see someone have an aha moment, when you kind of see them break through something that they've been thinking about, or have some kind of big takeaway. And when you multiply that by 300 or 400 times in a room, and you can impact that many people and benefit that many people in one 1 hour keynote or a 3 hour workshop or whatever the format is, it's extremely rewarding. And it's also just turns out that it's a fantastic way to generate leads and a great way to build a community, rather than trying to go and find people one at a time. If you can speak in front of groups of people, it's a great leveraged way to position yourself and to start building that tribe. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you're still doing a bit of singing in your band?
Yes. So I've actually got two little outfits going at the moment. There's an original band called Stray Gods, and we're basically just an experimental kind of funk rock kind of. It's basically an excuse for the boys to get together, and it's like a poker night without the cards and without the cigars.
Yeah, I know them well. Being a drummer myself.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And then there's a classic rock blues band that I've joined, we're just a straight up cover band, just playing old Cream and Jimi Hendrix and Doobie Brothers and Gary Moore songs, and those guys are monster players, really good players. So we're just about to start gigging with that band, so I'm really looking forward to that as well.
If you could do that full time, would you?
That's a really good question. I've thought about this recently, actually. So I think if you didn't need money, right? So someone said to me recently, if you didn't need money, would you still do what you do? And I said I probably would, because it might be a slightly different angle or a slightly different format, but just playing music full time, I think I would get a little bored. I think there's something about business and something about building communities that feeds my kind of instant feedback loop. Like I need feedback all the time. It's like my drug. Like, gigging once a week and having people clap just wouldn't be enough for me, I need more applause than that, Ed.
Yeah, all right.
So thank you very much.
How's that? Does that work?
Excellent. Perfect. So, I'd probably, if I was just playing music full time, I'd probably then just go and speak at conferences, because I just love that connection. I just love helping people, and I'm really comfortable leading a tribe and kind of being the leader of a community. And I think the important distinction here is that what I've learned, and it's a humbling experience to learn, is that the leader of a community doesn't have to have all the answers. A leader of a tribe just has to be prepared to unite the community and facilitate the conversation. And I know I keep using that phrase, but you don't actually have to be an expert. You don't have to have all the answers. You just need to be prepared to stand up and moderate and facilitate the conversation.
Yeah, well said. I think you're limiting yourself if you try and position yourself as the expert in any one thing, because you really can't be.
Yeah,
and you only grow from working with others and building that tribe, I believe. So
yeah. Totally. And, I look at like some TV, like one of the things I would love to do is I would love to host a TV show. I'd love to be
I can picture you doing that.
Yeah, I'd love to host a TV show. I shot an episode of our podcast way back last year with Elliot Condon, who's the developer of Advanced Custom Fields. And we actually shot that episode live at one of our workshops in Melbourne. And that's the most fun you can have with your pants on, I reckon, doing that, interviewing people live on a TV format is something I would love to do. In fact, I planted a seed recently here where I work in the building of doing something here. There's a great space downstairs, and everyone here, between us, we all know a bunch of really cool entrepreneurs, and I reckon we could roll something out. So it is something I'm considering, interviewing, people at the top of their game in some kind of TV format. So stay tuned, because
that'd be cool. I'm trying to think. One of the American well-known speakers did that. I can't remember who it is now. I'll have to think. But he did some sort of TV show going on a few years ago. I mean, I personally think Jimmy Fallon's got the best job on the planet. I'd love to do Jimmy Fallon's work. I watch it all the time, and it just has a laugh. He's just interviewing these people. Usually all of a very similar type. They're actors or TV personalities, or someone famous. It's not just someone like me that would go on there. Yeah, but I'm sure I'd be very entertaining. But no, I know what you're saying. It'd be great.
And if you think about Letterman, right? Dave Letterman is not an expert. He's an expert in being Dave Letterman.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? If you think about Oprah's the great model, right? I mean, Oprah is one of the most influential people on the planet, and yet most of the content on her show was created by her guests.
Absolutely.
Right? So all she did was facilitate the conversation between the guests and her audience. And I think that's my sweet spot, and I think that's probably where I'll end up doing more and more work in years to come. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, mate, we're heading close to 40 minutes of conversation. We could keep talking forever, but I'm conscious of your time.
Quick. Yeah.
So, look, mate, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been very revealing and insightful, and there's absolutely a few gold nuggets that were dropped in that. So how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way or easiest way for people to start following what Troy Dean is doing?
Sure. So on Twitter at Troy Dean is a really easy way to get in touch with me. Yep. My blog is troydean.com.au.
Awesome.
And the Facebook group is a really good place to keep the conversation going too. The Facebook group is there's a short link which is revrev.me/FB. So that's REV for revenue, revrev.me/FB. And that will take you straight to the Facebook group. So I'd love you to come and join that and continue the conversation.
No worries. Well, we'll have all those links in the show notes for people to follow, and they'll certainly not regret it. You've got a lot to offer, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, Ed, and keep up the great work, mate.
Thanks, Troy. Speak soon.
You've been listening to The Business Marketing Show. You can find us at businessmarketingshow.com on iTunes, SoundCloud and Stitcher.